Coming up in a few minutes on Dallas Mavericks Today, we have some training camp takeaways as things have gotten underway for the Dallas Mavericks. Harrison Graham, Jeffrey Cooperstein here. But first, Coop, I think we got to start here. Tim MacMahon on whatever that
the Hoop Collective podcast.
Collective, thank you very much.
He does it every week.
Mavs and NBA insider for a while for ESPN. Basically dropped this bomb on us that the Suns were willing to accept a trade offer to send DeAndre Ayton to Dallas for Tim Hardaway Jr. and Richaun Holmes. And apparently the sticking point to why that deal didn't get done is Dallas was insistent on JaVale McGee going to Phoenix. They, of course, ended up cutting him, and now Ayton is off to Portland in the Damian Lillard trade. Coop, your instant reaction is what?
I think what this tells me is that the Mavs were never really interested in DeAndre Ayton. They were really interested in getting off of the assets that they perceived as negative in Richaun Holmes, Tim Hardaway, and JaVale McGee. Obviously, Ayton now ends up in Portland, and I think if the Mavs really wanted Ayton, the deal would have gotten done, and they would have just taken McGee out of the deal and would have just traded away Holmes and Hardaway and made peace with it. But I think the end of the day, the way that it ended up, DeAndre Ayton just was never going to be a Mav.
I think that is the right conclusion. I wonder if it should be the right conclusion.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you take a look at the trade on the surface, like, wow, the Mavs could have gotten DeAndre Ayton for just these two guys. You're like, they probably should have done that. But in the grand scheme of things, if the Mavs really didn't think DeAndre Ayton was the guy to move them to the next level, they didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a couple of different ways to look at this. One, they don't want to be stuck with basically a max contract for DeAndre Ayton if they think that's a clear overpay, which it probably is. I think he would have helped you at that 5 spot, which is something that we've talked about all offseason. But I do understand being stuck with that big of a contract, and if he does struggle for you, being able to flip him again becomes tougher. So I get that side of it. The other side also is maybe they are really high on Derek Lively. Maybe they think Lively can have an instant impact on this team. I will say this, Coop. DeAndre Ayton's not much of a shot blocker. He can score and he can rebound. He's not some out-of-this-world rim protector, though.
Right.
And I think that's an area where Lively can give you some production right away. I do have to say, though, when you look at the trade again, like, if we're 25 games into this season and center is a big problem,
it looks even worse.
I'm just like, I understand wanting to remain flexible and maybe looking elsewhere for other roster upgrades, but Richaun Holmes, I'm not expecting much out of, and Tim Hardaway Jr. is a nice player, but I think we all think Ayton's more valuable than him at this point.
Yeah, Ayton is more valuable than Tim Hardaway, and we've talked about this over the last couple of shows where Hardaway is kind of blocking the path for Jaden Hardy to really have a spot in this rotation.
That too.
So that's another reason why the Mavs making this deal probably would have made sense. Let us know what you think in the comments. Should the Mavs have accepted this deal? Type A for accept, D for decline. I'm going to say they should have accepted, but I'm not crying in my bed at night knowing that they didn't make this trade.
Yeah, I mean, I would have done it. Is it a move that makes you an instant championship team? Probably not. Does it get you closer? Probably. Does it also reduce flexibility for other moves? Also probably true. So I do get why they passed if this was the exact trade. But I personally think I probably would have done it because, you're still keeping your first-round draft picks, your second-round draft picks, and Ayton's a clear upgrade at the 5. So A for accept or D for decline. Now, Mavericks Media Day is tomorrow, and Coop is going to be there.
I'm excited, baby.
Coop's got a credential this year, so be looking for some different content, so YouTube Shorts maybe this weekend for things said. And
if
maybe
you guys have any questions that you want asked, whether it's to Jason Kidd, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, any players, drop them in the comments, and I'll try my best to ask them. I'm super excited to bring you guys some fresh content this year, and it'll be awesome. Mavs are one of the most exciting teams in the league, whether good or bad, so it'll be something.
Yeah, we're going to try and get Coop out there as often as possible. He'll go to a lot of home games and maybe some shoot-arounds and practices as well, and that'll start tomorrow, so hopefully we get some sound bites up on the channel for you guys. So subscribe, turn on the notifications, be looking for all of that as Mavericks Today taking things to the next level. All right, let's shift gears here, Coop, to training camp, which got underway yesterday, continued today. Again, media days tomorrow, so busy week for the Dallas Mavericks. And lots of things happening through a couple of days here, Coop. And we'll just start with this. And I think with what we've seen early on, even the Mavs put out a clip of it. the Mavs look like a team that's going to play bigger this year, just in terms of size on the basketball court.
Yeah, Jason Kidd went out there, and I'll let you read this quote. He pretty much just said, just as such, we're going to try to play bigger in terms than we have in the past.
Yeah, he said we'll try to play bigger than we have in years past, and it's interesting to say. I think a couple of things stand out to me when he says that. One, I do think they're going to try and get Derek Lively out there. Two, I think Omax is going to be in the rotation from day dot. He's a big wing, very long. I think he's going to be out there. I mean, could you go with him, Grant Williams, and Derek Lively in the game at the same time? I think it's definitely a possibility. So they're going to try and get bigger and more physical, it appears. And it makes sense to a certain extent, Coop, because you got to be a physical defensive team next to Luka and Kyrie.
For sure. And Jason Kidd has kind of always wanted to play this model in Dallas where there are two bigs on the court. I think he wanted Porzingis to play more four. It just didn't end up feasible there in his first season. That's why they ended up trading him. He was on that Frank Vogel coaching staff who won the 2020 title in the bubble, and the Lakers did it with two bigs on the court pretty much at all times. I think that's what the Mavs are looking for. So these are kind of the takeaways that I have. And like you said, I think Omax and Lively are going to play because those guys provide size and athleticism. I think Maxi Kleber will play more four, which is more of his traditional position. And I think there's going to be a true center on the court at all times, whether it be Derek Lively, Dwight Powell, or Richaun Holmes.
Yeah, and, Coop, I do think, to take it back to the Ayton thing, that almost makes me wonder even more why they didn't consider that trade.
For sure.
Because he's a true five.
He's
whereas,
big.
I mean, look, Richaun Holmes is like a 6'9" center. It's not like he's super big. And Dwight Powell's kind of in that 6'10" range as well. I mean, you don't really have a true 7-footer on this roster except for Lively, who's right around 6'11", 7 foot. So makes me wonder even more. It also makes me wonder if they're still exploring that center spot with other options than Deandre Ayton, if they really do want to play two true bigs at once.
We're still 3 weeks till the season, so I mean there is still room for a deal to be made if the Mavs are really looking in that path. And I really think it's something that they're going to explore, but I think they're going to wait until like around Christmas time, sort of like they did last year to evaluate the team. If they need a center, maybe they go get one.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. More to discuss here on Mavericks today, but first, got to show some love to our sponsor. That is Prize Picks, guys. I have never had more fun on NFL game days than I have with Prize Picks because it is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. And if you're looking for a more fun way to spend your game days, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, look no further than Prize Picks. How does it work, you ask? Well, here's how. You pick 2 to 6 players, all the way up to 6, as low as 2, and basically take more or less on their projections. Here's an example. Luka Doncic, points per game this season, I'm taking more on that. I think he's going to top that number. Kyrie Irving, I'm going to go less. I'm going to go of a more efficient approach with him, and I just think Luka's going to have a monster year. 20 to win 60 there. Daily fantasy sports has never been more fun, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any given entry. If you go all the way to 6 players, you can get 25x if you're able to hit those. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. That's code CLNS. Prizepicks.com/CLNS. They will match your deposit up to $100. You put in 50, they'll give you 50. You put in 100, they'll give you 100. Match it up to $100. Get started today. Download the Prize Picks app. Get started with code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS.
Number 2.
Luka and Kyrie, Coop. A lot of discussion, especially today, I would say, even more so from Kyrie's standpoint. And pretty clear he's pretty happy to be here right now.
Yeah, Kyrie met with the media and basically said he's in love with the culture with the Mavericks, and if they were able to draft him back in 2011, they would have been at the top of his list. So that just kind of shows that Kyrie has really loved being in Dallas so far, and he mentioned that re-signing was a pretty easy process, and the Mavs were at the top of his list. Again, easy to say now that it's in the past, and he did re-sign with the Mavs. He wouldn't have said anything else like, oh, I didn't want to be here. But no, it's all been positive from Kyrie's standpoint. He even mentioned that him and Luka were in communication during the offseason. He was texting Luka during the FIBA World Cup. He was kind of talking trash to him to motivate him, saying Kyrie and Dirk have both won FIBA World Cup MVPs, so where's yours, Luka, basically. So it's good that those guys are having a relationship, and they definitely need to build on it for sure.
So what you're saying is he's the reason Luka was playing 37 minutes in a game that was meaningless.
You could say that.
Blaming,
people are talking.
You're blaming Kyrie.
Two Cuban heads.
Luka yesterday talked about this a lot as well. In terms of building that chemistry. He said, it's better for sure. He came in the middle of the season last year, and we didn't have much time. We went straight to playing games. It takes time to do chemistry, especially on the court. So we didn't have the whole training camp and then the preseason too. I think it's going to be way better. Here's Coach Jason Kidd as well. He says, we like things that happen right away, but we will continue to grow that relationship. There is a relationship, and so they had the summer, and now they have a preseason to bond, but that's the big question. Can they coexist? And it is not that they don't coexist, it's the group around them. I think sometimes we are misinformed. If you have the right pieces around, they're going to coexist, and after day one, they coexisted at a high level. And obviously, Coop, this engine runs through these two players, Luka and Kyrie. If they can play at a high level together efficiently, then hopefully the rest will fall into place.
There's no secret that the Mavs are as good as these two guys are. If these guys aren't on and playing well every night, then the Mavs are going to struggle. If these guys are playing at the level that they're capable of, then the Mavs will compete in the Western Conference. Luka's a top 5 player in the league. Kyrie is one of the very best point guards in the NBA as well. So the Mavericks definitely have the talent to make it a good distance here in the playoffs this season. It's just a matter of whether those guys can coexist and then if they can mold it into the rest of the team.
Yeah, that's the big question. What do you guys think about Luka and Kyrie's chemistry right now, A, B, C, D, or F? It's hard to know, Coop. I mean, they put up some good numbers together last year.
They put up great numbers together last year. The records just weren't great.
Yeah, it didn't lead to wins necessarily. So I would say I for incomplete. I mean, I think we gotta see what it looks like, 10, 20 games in. And, I think we do need to give it a little bit of time to start the year. But, yeah, that's priority number one. Like, these two guys got to get on the same page, be leaders of this team, and set the example of what is expected. This is an interesting one, Coop. Seth Curry playing point guard, and this is not the first time the Mavericks have flirted with this idea. Was it his first or second stint here?
In the first stint, Rick Carlisle played him at a lot of point guard, and Jason Kidd kind of hinted at that's something that's going to be coming down the pipeline. He more or less said that's one of the things that's people don't talk enough about Seth. He said that's one thing that's underrated about Seth is that he can handle the ball. He can't just shoot it, but he can run the offense. I think he's going to play a lot for us this season. So what that tells me is that behind Luka and Kyrie, Seth Curry's getting the point guard minutes?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of different ways you could analyze this, right? Maybe they don't trust Jaden Hardy to run the offense yet. As the guard off the bench, at least from the point position. Maybe they'd rather have him just strictly be, a scorer. Like, sure, he'll have the ball in his hands, but he's not going to facilitate that much. That's what that's telling me. Also, does that mean that Exum's playing more off ball, or is just not in the rotation? I think that's something to consider as well.
I kind of think that he's either moved to the wing or he's just not a rotation guy at all. And that's kind of what we expected going in. But I'm excited that Seth Curry has a role in Jason Kidd's plans, because when the Mavs have Jaden Hardy and they have Tim Hardaway, there's not really a lot of room for Seth Curry to end up playing. So I'm glad that they found a role for him.
Yeah, and look, that might just be roster recognition from Jason Kidd and the staff, just saying, look, Seth Curry is too good of a player to not play, but we're overloaded at 2 guard. We're going to have to play him at 1 some. So that could be just the situation too, where it's like, hey, to find this guy, 5 to 8 more minutes per game, he's going to have to play some points. So it's going to be interesting to see how that looks, and hopefully we get to see him get some of those minutes in the preseason to see him do those things. And then let's talk about Luka's injury. Coop, he, of course, had a banged-up thigh during the summer in the FIBA World Cup, and obviously it's critical for this team to get out to a good start. And he acknowledged that the thigh is not 100%, but said there's also no on-court limitations, so it's not one of those panic meter things, but you don't necessarily love to hear that either, Coop. Like, you don't want to enter a season not at 100%, because once you're not 100% during a season, you basically never get back to that.
Yeah, it's kind of alarming just simply because this has been nagging him since March, and it really hasn't gotten a whole lot better. He played with it in the FIBA World Cup. He played heavy minutes there as well. He came over, got some rest, and now he's practicing. He said no on-court limitations for now, but they are doing tests on his thigh this week to try to get an official diagnosis, because originally they called it a thigh strain, but I don't think that's what it is at the moment. So they're trying to get an official diagnosis on what the problem is to where they can attack it, and hopefully it heals.
Well, it's one of those things too, Coop, where it's like, okay, yeah, like, if he could play through it, I still expect him to play well, but like, do you want this nagging thing for the next 6 months? Like, it's just not, it's not something you want, because you get 40, 50, 60 games in, and it's just like, it becomes this pain tolerance game, and I just feel like eventually, even for these premier athletes, it's like, that can wear a player down,
For sure. I don't know if he needs surgery or anything. I'm not speculating anything like that, but I think if he were to have needed surgery, it probably would have had to have been in the offseason. If he can play through it, he can play through it, and that's great. But you don't want your star player in pain every single night.
Yeah, so this is definitely something to monitor as we shift through the preseason, which, of course, they do go overseas here. When do they go?
I believe they leave on Sunday.
So they're in two-a-day mode right now, trying to ramp things up, and then they're going to go on their overseas tour. They got an Abu Dhabi game. They got a couple other
2 games
stops.
in Abu Dhabi, a game in Madrid.
Okay, there you go. And you know he's going to play in Madrid.
He will play in that one, guaranteed.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. What's your concern level over Luka's thigh injury? Scale from 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being panic. 4, 5?
Yeah, it's not a 1 or a 2, I'll tell you that. Yeah. I'm going to say like a 4 at the moment. I'm not overly concerned, but I'm not concerned.
Yeah, I mean, look, him saying I'm not 100% raises it above a 1.
That's all you need. Yeah, exactly.
So we'll definitely monitor this and have you guys covered here on Mavericks Today. So be sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Coop's going to be out there tomorrow. Go follow Coop on Twitter, too. He might put some clips up on his social media. So, Coop, tell him where the great MFFL is.
I will. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Coop27 right there. I'll be tweeting all things Media Day and whatnot. Hopefully get some good content for you guys, so I'm excited.
Yeah, so check his Twitter out. We'll, of course, have some stuff here on Mavericks Today as well. Coop and I are fired up for the upcoming season. Mavs basketball is back. We'll see you next time.
See you guys soon.